And well, I'm sure a lot of people kind of know Secret of Mana, but just in case you may not, this is a Super Nintendo action RPG. Well, I guess Super Nintendo is kind of obvious, considering this is the SNES Super Stars run, but for probably a lot of people, this might have been one of your first RPGs, especially if you lived in Europe, since we didn't get a whole lot of those before the Super Nintendo either. And, well, you can play this with up to 3 players simultaneously, which is very unusual since this is a game that is on the Super Nintendo. Normally only has 2 controller ports, but it works with the multi-tab. In this case, I'm playing the Super Nintendo Mini version of the game, which unfortunately actually does not have 3 ports, but technically it is up to 3. Oh, I got cut out first. I'm back though. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome everybody. Hope you have a most pleasant day today, or a good night, or a good morning, whatever it might be. I just recently woke up, and I guess I'm ready to go. Well, maybe just kind of as an introduction here to name. Normally in a speedrun, what you want to do is you want to choose the shortest possible name, which is 1 letter, because the shorter the name, the less time it spends in the text boxes. Today, I don't think we worry too much about that, so we just go with just SNES Super Stars here. And yeah, I think we're gonna be ready in just a moment. So, well, let's get this going, shall we? Welcome to Secret of Mana. So, as a heads up, I'm not going to be keeping track of the story of the game too much, because the story is neat, but we're going to be skipping quite a few things, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to keep track of certain things. Plus, this speedrun here is done with 2 controllers. I'm only 1 player, so the second controller or the second character is going to be largely not active throughout a lot of the portions of the run. However, during boss fights and various other in-between sections, a second controller or a second character is very helpful to have and be controlled directly. I'm gonna go a little bit more into detail as that is, but in short, the entire route and also most of the glitches you can do with just 1 controller, but it's a lot more awkward / random. So a second controller just kind of removes that randomness and adds an additional execution element on top of it. Oh yeah, welcome everybody, and congratulations to the previous runners, because I think we are a little bit ahead of schedule here. That is actually kind of a good thing in the sense that, well, that means nothing major bad happens, so that's quite pleasant. Alrighty, welcome to Secret of Mana. We start off with the boy here, the waterfall. He falls down and, well, we land in the water. By the way, don't worry about fall damage, because apparently fall damage was not invented yet in the world of Secret of Mana, so didn't worry about that too much. So they can fall basically any distance and it's going to be perfectly fine. Further, there's going to be these cutscenes here. Some of them are automated, so I can't speed through them as much as I would like to, but at the same time, it also gives me a bit more time to explain. Like this one here, I don't have to do any inputs for a while. Either way, this is an action RPG, and as such, well, we have more or less real-time combat. The combat is still, well, very basic. However, it does have quite a few elements that can be interesting and are not necessarily obvious, and we'll get to those in just a moment. So for anybody who may not know the game, as soon as we pull up out the sword here, we get a action bar at the bottom. Whenever I'm running, or more specifically, in order to run, I have to have a full stamina meter. At the bottom you see a percentage count up as soon as I run or swing, and in order to run I have to have a full stamina meter, and I cannot change direction while running. Also, in order to battle effectively, for the most part, I have to wait until my stamina meter is full. Unless I need to do exactly 2 damage. So these rabbits here have 20 HP. I defeat a bunch of them along the way here in order to get a bit of weapon experience. Because there's 2 different types of experiences in Secret of Mana. One is character experience, which, well, as you might know, the more you defeat enemies, the higher level your character gets. But also, you get weapon experience. What this means is that your character also gains effectively experience with handling a weapon. You do not deal more damage with the weapon as soon as you level it up. However, you do gain the ability to charge up your weapon to the next highest level. Currently, my charge attack level is 0, so I cannot charge up my weapon at all, but once it reaches level 1, I can hold down the attack button and it will unleash a charge attack. Each charge attack will deal 50% more damage than the previous one, so level 1 charge attack is 150% damage, level 2 is 200% damage, etc. So yeah, welcome everybody. Also, one thing worth noting, since this is the Super Nintendo Mini version, the Super Nintendo Mini is an official release from Nintendo, and it also is basically an interesting kind of little emulator, because you know those extremely flashing screens that a lot of Super Nintendo games have, and earlier ones too? Well, that flashing effect is actually severely toned down compared to what it normally would be through a filter the Super Nintendo Mini kind of uses itself. So, that's actually one of my favorite things about the Super Nintendo Mini version, because there's some very unpleasant flashing effects in Secret of Mana here as well that are, well, significantly toned down thanks to this, so that's nice. Also, welcome to boss fights. This was a Mantis Ant boss fight. And Mantis Ant is kinda straightforward, and funnily enough, despite being the first boss, you cannot die to him, as in if you reach 0 HP at the bottom. As in the 59 out of 59 is my HP, I have 59 HP and I get healed to full after boss fight. However, even if you die to the boss here, you actually automatically get revived, you literally cannot lose the battle. However, of course, in a speedrun that would be really slow. And defeating this guy is actually surprisingly tricky, but turns out the fastest way is you just slash at him before he slashes you. And you should usually win as long as you time your strikes correctly. And yes, one of my favorite aspects about the game is the variety and how amazing the music is, honestly. Alrighty, we get instructed by Gemma right there to visit the water palace, because apparently we have picked up the legendary Sword of Mana and now we need to power it up since it is kind of rusty. Like, the sword is literally called the Rusty Sword if you look at it in the, like, status screen for weapons. Alrighty, also the boy here kind of gets expelled from Potter's Village, so conveniently enough, we also have a reason as to why we want to go outside. The elder tells us that we can go downstairs in order to pick up the chests for our travels, which would be 50 gold. And, well, it's a speedrun, I don't need those. To be fair, a glitchless speedrun does in fact have use for that money in the basement, so it is indeed quite useful. Alrighty, I need to defeat a few more enemies in order to level up to level 1 with the weapon, there it is. And another thing worth noting maybe, enemies, or generally speaking, well actually yeah, let's just roll with enemies. Whenever you are in an area where there's enemies, there can only be a maximum of 3 enemies active at any given moment. That's kind of a limitation of the system, but also it makes a lot of sense. And what this also means is that if you go into certain areas that have always certain NPCs loaded, because they are kind of important in order to do stuff, there actually might only be 2 enemies active at any given moment, so specifically that area where I just killed the remaining enemies in, that gave me a sword level 1, that area actually can only have up to 2 enemies. And I can kind of use that to my advantage in order to do a bunch of spawn manipulation, since I don't necessarily want the enemies to be in the way, since that's kind of a little bit awkward if we can't just run through, of course. So generally speaking, levels for the character are going to be mostly irrelevant after I gained level 3 in Gaia's Navel here. And, well, they would just be nice to have for more, well, defense and maximum HP, but beyond that, we actually don't care about levels anymore, because we have other methods of dealing with enemies relatively efficiently and also surviving for that matter, as long as I play it well. Also, you need to press the left, and then the right text box triggers here, or well, the options. If you accidentally choose the wrong option in this text box, Luca remembers all the things you haven't asked about, or all the text box options you haven't triggered, and will give you like a 1.5 minute lengthy text box speech, which is gonna be a little bit awkward. Either way, we seal the mana seed, and the mana seed is actually not just a plot device, it also is giving a little bit of power, a bit of attack power, a little bit of defense, etc. And it also serves to level up your character's magic further if you go with using magic. In spoilers, in 1-player 2 controller run, we actually don't use magic, aside from opening up the passageways. So also what I just did there is you can press select start and L and R at the same time in order to reset the game. Or that's a soft reset, and that's kind of a built-in function of the game, which is very convenient since I don't have to press the reset button, since that's kind of slow on the SNES Mini. But also simultaneously, it does have some interesting implications on how you end up playing the game, let's put it that way. I'm going to wait here briefly because I want to manipulate both enemies spawning here. Because I want to also level up the spear to level 1, so I need to defeat a certain amount of enemies in order for that to be worthwhile. The spear actually has 1 attack power more than the sword right now, so it is quite useful. But at the same time, the reason why I want it to be level 1 is because we're gonna use a glitch in order to defeat enemies and bosses very efficiently a little bit later. So just leveling it along the way to level 1 is going to be the most efficient thing. Alrighty, and as I said, don't worry about fall damage, this is perfectly normal in the world of Secret of Mana. And that bee actually has just slightly too much HP for me to defeat with 2 more swings, even though we land on it. So it's actually not efficient to knock it out, unfortunately. Either way, welcome to Nico. Nico here sells you various goods that you actually cannot find anywhere else, or at least not anywhere else for a long time, so it's pretty awesome to have these here. However, we don't have a whole lot of money, and he asks for twice the amount of money compared to the normal price. But we can kind of fix that. We buy 2 items, set our regular inventory cursor to the second item, sell both, go back in the buy menu, go back into the sell menu, and suddenly the entire menu is kind of messed up, and we get a ton of money by selling literally nothing. It's a little bit weird. Either way, after that, I'm gonna go ahead and buy basically all the supplies we need for the rest of the game. The maximum amount of items you can normally have in your inventory is 4, so I'm only buying 2, because there's another glitch that I can use just a little bit later in order to multiply the items I have in my inventory from 2 up to 8. Well, technically the display in the menu is going to be saying that I have 0 of each of the consumable items, but because they are still selectable, it's effectively 8 because it's going to count down from 7 afterwards. No controller cam? Yeah, sorry, this is not set up for today. Good morning and welcome. Alrighty, so here, these goblins have 64 HP, and well, we can just defeat them relatively easily by hitting 3 times decently hard, and then, well, we just swing once more for like 1 damage. Worth noting, actually, there is basically the concept of low and high damage rolls. So aside from having a little bit of variance how much damage you deal a little bit later on, early on it has like a 20% chance to get a low damage roll and a decently high chance to get a high damage roll, like, well, the rest, 80%. I say 80%, but that's kind of variable and not exactly accurate, but let's just roll with these numbers for now. Either way, these goblins here are actually pretty dangerous. I don't actually have any notable equipment, so they hit like a truck. But I defeated them, my weapon skill is leveled up, so the spear is now level 1 as well. And aside from that, we pick up the magic rope. The magic rope is a... those things are scary if they get if I get hit there, I might just straight up die. Either way, the magic rope allows you to return back to the entrance of a cave, so you don't have to walk all the way outside, so you can imagine how efficient or, well, useful that is, so that's nice. Further, we need to hit this switch here in order to enter the dwarven village. And moving on. So welcome to the dwarven village, and some people really like this music, some people really don't, but that's okay. There is 2 plot triggers that we need to hit in this dwarven village in order to advance the story. One is upgrading our sword to level 2, well, level 1, I don't know. We upgrade our sword, which also means that now that if we defeat enemies with the sword, we can level up the sword towards level 2. Previously, we actually are capped at level 1 to be able to, well, level up the sword, or any weapon really, unless we forge them. And the weapon orbs you gain from the various bosses, or also in some chests, allow you to forge your weapon just a little bit higher to the next level, and that's quite useful to say the least. So next up, we also go ahead and buy equipment here. So notably, the power wrists increase your strength by 5, which effectively means that's about 5 levels worth of attack power compared to what we had before. Also 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, and a helmet and a rabbit cat for the sprite a little bit later. So the reason why I bought so many armor pieces is because we're gonna throw them away. I mean, literally, we're gonna throw them away. And I'm going to specifically stand against this left wall here before throwing them away. So I will equip the armor piece and then throw it away. Equip, throw away, equip, throw away, equip, throw away, equip, throw away. And the reason why we are doing this is because this allows us to actually multiply the items in our inventory. This is the glitch I mentioned to do that. So, in short, what happens, the game is trying to unequip the item you have equipped before deleting it from your inventory when you throw it away, but, well, Secret of Mana is a little bit infamous for having so many bugs, and this is one of them. Based on your horizontal screen position, it actually, instead of throwing away the regular item, or throwing away the item and unequipping it, it just modifies certain values in memory that, let's say, look correct in order to unequip the item. And the convenient thing is, the amount of items we have in our inventory being exactly 2 kind of look like as if the boy had that item equipped, and then so the game reduces that amount by 2. So I had 2 barrels, 2 chocolates, 2 cups of wishes, etc. in my inventory, and I reduced the amount of these items by 2 by doing these weird shenanigans. And consequently now I, well, have 0 of each of these consumable items in my inventory. However, 0 is technically a usable value still, so if I use the item once, it's going to be rolling over or underflowing over to 7. So effectively I have 8 of each consumable item in my inventory. Also, welcome to the fruit salad boss, or also known as Tropicalo. This boss here normally dives down after each individual hit, but if you time your hit right, he interrupts the diving down process with a pumpkin throw in some capacity. I have to admit, I don't exactly know how this works, but as long as I hit him at the earliest possible moment, as soon as he comes back up, it's actually quite consistent. So, 2 things worth knowing. Melee weapons like the sword and the spear and the axe, etc., they have their reach doubled in boss fights. So in fact, I do have actually really good luck that's cycle quicker than usual. Either way, weapons have a certain reach in boss fights, and they are doubled in boss fights. So that's kind of why you might be able to hit targets that clearly look like you're too far away from the enemies and bosses, but, well, not quite. Oh, how do you moonwalk backwards like that? You hold down the attack button, in this case the B button, and then you hold down the L or R button at the same time. That allows you to not switch facing direction. For the most part I just do it for fun, because why not? But there's actually some minor uses where I actually do want to have a specific facing direction. Alrighty, also here we get our second party member for our team, and this is the sprite. And I'm just gonna name the sprite Y because quick character and I didn't think of a proper name, I'm sorry. Either way, I'm going to give the sprite the spear weapon, because that's gonna be what I would want the sprite to have. And also for some glitch shenanigans a little bit later on. And here we also gain the bow and arrow and boomerang weapons. We are unfortunately not going to use these during this run. Alrighty, however, now we have a second party member. The AI control character is going to do his best to try and keep up with me. However, I actually cannot go too far out of the screen for AI-controlled characters at all, or generally all characters, because we are locked with them in a, like, invisible camera boundary box. So we can only go so far away, so it's very easy to get locked away from being able to move around. And this is kind of where the infamous AI that gets stuck everywhere comes into play for Secret of Mana. It's definitely a thing. Also here I'm going to equip the sprite with my second controller, with the equipment that we bought a little bit early for him. And I also set the second controller to be upside down. So the reason why you actually can remap buttons in Secret of Mana. Remember, this is a Super Nintendo game, and a lot of games nowadays don't have the proper option to remap buttons. It's kind of crazy, all things considered. Either way, here, I want to level up the sword to level 2 as we go, and the enemies here actually don't deal any damage because our equipment is too high in terms of defense. Either way, yeah, I remapped the button, or more specifically the D-pad, to be upside down in this game here, which is a bit of a unique feature to say the least. Oops, there we go. And the reason why I'm doing this is actually I'm holding my second controller upside down, and this now makes the D-pad actually the correct way around. If you'd like to see anything like that, I do have a few runs with a handcam, but just trust me, it's kind of fun to use like this. And it also increases the skill ceiling to run Secret of Mana with two controllers by a ridiculous amount. It actually does not take that much in order to be able to just do a run. Like, it's not as complicated as it sounds with two controllers, but it is actually a lot of fun to try and optimize every little detail about it. Also, by the way, we're going to ignore rescuing the lady by jumping through the wall here. The way this works is rope pulls are really strange. Basically, a lot of events in Secret of Mana activate in slightly unorthodox ways in terms of when they do what. Oh, I got a crit. But unfortunately then the boy got a low damage roll. Either way, basically what happens when you hit one of those rope poles, or one of those poles in general, they first allow you to walk the walls as soon as you hit them. Then they lock your movement in any direction, so you cannot normally move. However, there's two separate methods I just used in order to move anyways. One is if I charge up my weapon attack to level 1 with the sword, for example, I actually in fact can move. So this allows me to, well, move slightly earlier than I normally would be able to. Also, by the way, you do not have invulnerability frames in this game for the most part. So enemies just hitting you and hitting you again and again can easily just stun lock you and knock you out right away. It's kind of mean, actually. Either way, I still need to level up the sword, so this guy that spawns more enemies is very convenient for doing such a thing. And also gaining some levels along the way, which also heal me to full, which is very convenient as well. Alright, give me just a moment. This could be bad. Alright, we got through. These wolves here can be really mean, and if you have played this game casually, they are not easy to defeat or even sneak past. Could be better than this, but, well. Is moonwalking a glitch? Or is it legal? Moonwalking is just a feature that is not explained anywhere. So that is indeed a thing that you can normally do as well. Either way, let's move up here through the staircase. And I still need to level up my sword towards level 2. Okay, and as long as I time my things right, the sprite will just stand there with the second controller, move the sprite around the area. Well, boy charging the weapon, while I'm also getting my... Ooh, that was a crit, that's not good. I'm actually, I think, one enemy short in terms of leveling up the weapon, so we'll see in just a moment here. Maybe? Oh no, I'm lucky, alright, we're fine. Worth noting, if the sprite gets the last hit on an enemy, the boy only gets half the weapon experience. Similarly, if an enemy is too low level, the boy also only gets half the weapon experience, because... well, that's kind of how it works in this game. Either way, the sword is now level 2, and this is kind of where the glitchy shenanigans occur. So chat, tell me, what happens if you put a level 2 sword charge attack onto a level 1 spear? Well, I can tell you, it's going to be a very dead Spiky Tiger overall. So either way, what I'm going to do here is I need to run away from Spiky Tiger, because he is almost always going to land exactly on you unless you specifically run away. The boy starts charging up the weapon. I attacked too early. That was a mistake. So I need to get luckier than usual in order for Spiky Tiger to stay here. So the sprite is going to exchange the spear with the level 1 sword, and I'm going to consequently get a very, very glitchy charge bar at the bottom. And we're just going to one-shot Spiky Tiger. So Spiky Tiger has, what was it, like 540 HP? I have to admit I don't exactly remember. But Spiky Tiger has a lot of HP. Normally our attacks deal like 60 damage if we critically hit with a regular swing or something like that. However, a charge attack of that magnitude just one-shot him. So what happens effectively is the game gets really confused as to what is supposed to happen when you have charged up your sword to the maximum. The game recognizes that is the maximum, but then you switch the weapon over to the spear, which actually has a lower maximum, but that maximum is not yet reached because, well, the maximum is not the same. It basically, well, as I said, the game gets really confused about this. And it allows me to effectively what we call overcharge the weapon. Weapon overcharge basically increases your weapon's charge level by 1 every 2 frames. And so I actually can attack with a charge attack that is normally completely impossible with like a charge level of 70, 80? I actually don't exactly know what we use. But I'm effectively using the glitchy bar at the bottom in order to tell which charge attack I currently have in order to be able to execute it. You can overcharge too much and the damage values are going to roll over into the negative and really low again, so that's of course less than ideal. So yeah, either way, moving on here, just running through the areas. And that's going to be how most of the stuff works. Also, by the way, in case you are wondering what these rope pulls are normally for, this is what they are normally for. You're supposed to be able to take this shortcut once you acquire the whip as a weapon, but, well, we don't necessarily need the whip as a weapon in order to traverse these places if we know how. As mentioned before, you can do pretty much all of these things with just one controller, but it's a lot more awkward to execute, and that goes for rope pull shenanigans as well as... wrong character. As well as other stuff. Alrighty, so let me demonstrate again about the overcharge glitch. So, charge up the weapon to level 1, switch to level 2 weapon, it instantly snaps to level 2, and switch to level 2 weapon, attack, and... So the tadpole actually has 600 HP, the fish lizard afterwards has a bit more than... oh, I forgot. Fine. The fish lizard has 777. So normally you need to deplete the tadpole's HP by half below 300, and then it transforms into the second form, which has 777 HP. However, if you just one-shot the first form, the second form is also going to instantly die, which is kind of what happened there. Even the enemies are cute in this game, yes. The little biting lizard is actually very adorable, so it's kind of a shame that we have to knock him out. Really big shame. Alright, I actually messed up my controller setup here, so it'll be fine. Yeah, this is kind of what usually happens here. This is fine. So basically, we actually have a plan on what to do in every single room. Some of these plans can be easily disrupted by doing just a slightly wrong turn or input, and then we kind of have to adjust on the fly on what we want to do. Also, they can easily be disrupted by certain enemies just doing certain things against you, so that's also kind of mean. Alrighty. However, in the meantime, we can go back and forth between Gaia's Navel and the War Palace, because apparently that's kind of how the game likes to work. We now have Undini as an elemental spirit. The elemental spirits allow you to cast spells. And let me tell you, once you manage to cast spells in Secret of Mana, the casual playthrough gets so much easier. Like, Spiky Tiger is genuinely really difficult. If you die to that guy a few times, that is perfectly normal. Like, even in glitchless speedruns, he can be really mean, even if you know exactly how to manipulate him and what to do. So yeah. By the way, I knocked out that enemy there because I got a critical hit, and it actually allows the sprite to be sometimes slightly higher level or the boy for more favorable ranges, so that's useful. Alrighty. Welcome back to the Dwarven Village, and this is where I'm going to take the first marathon safety save, because, let's put it this way, the next area, as long as I play it properly, it's never going to kill me. But it's very easy to mess up, and if I do, it's very easy to just straight up die, because Secret of Mana can be kinda mean. Either way, this is how you're normally supposed to open up various passageways and areas, by activating these orbs here. And then welcome to the Earth Temple, where enemies are actually pretty dangerous, and if they hit you, you're probably going to die. Well, maybe not quite that extreme in this case. We do have actually quite a bit of defense, and they're not usually going to one-shot us, and we do have ways to, well, recover if we do get hit. But, well, if you have ever played this game, those goblins are vicious, like they are really mean. Normally the boomerang weapon is actually not the best weapon. Well, it can be the best weapon in certain circumstances. Either way, as a player, you might be a little bit underwhelmed by the boomerang weapon. But these goblins here, they absolutely love demolishing you with the boomerang. It's kind of amazing, because they have effectively no cooldown on how quick they can attack. Also, that slime just got a high damage roll. The sprite normally doesn't take damage. He has too much defense compared to what it normally is. But in this case, the sprite, in fact, just took a little bit more damage than usual. So there's that. Also switching the sprite back to a sword, in order for us to do more weapon swap shenanigans. Fun fact, the sprite has to be alive in this cutscene in order to trigger it, otherwise your characters will tell you, hey, we probably should take care of him. By him, they mean the sprite. They don't care whether the boy or the lady are knocked out in this case. Either way. That was a mistake. I pressed the wrong button there. This is going to be really, really awkward really quick now. Yeah, this is gonna be super awkward now. Fireball. Alright. I managed to largely recover. This is fine. This is a world attack. Okay, I actually sequenced my input slightly wrong. Attack, please. Alright, we got him, okay. So, let me explain as to why this guy is so dangerous. Basically, at this point in the game, you're supposed to have 3 characters. We kind of skipped getting the lady. And she will join us later, but for now she's just not present. And the game is balanced around certain spells hitting all 3 party members of yours in order to determine how much damage the spell is supposed to deal. However, because I only have 2 characters and we are kind of under-leveled here with the equipment that is expected for us to have, the Fire Kick is actually one-shots the sprite, generally speaking, with any spell, as long as I don't manage to deny the damage. The boy, if he has high enough HP and get lucky with a low damage roll like I did just now, he actually can survive a spell cast. So, basically, what just happened there is the Fire Kick is actually counterattacked with Fireball instead of doing his claw attack. I actually don't know why, because I was standing in a different position. So that must have been like pixels away from his normal script. Either way, that was kind of in my favor. I cast a spell with the sprite, largely in order for the sprite to be immune to attacks and spells. Because while you're casting a spell as a character, you do not take damage from enemy attacks and spells, even if their animation ends up playing out. Further, if you actually use an item on a character that gets hit by a spell, you can completely deny that damage. And that's also a technique that is largely used in a speedrun in order for the characters to not instantly die, with virtually no armor equipped. Alrighty, next up we have the Kanoni brothers. Also, you may notice that I'm actually selecting the second controller in order to talk to the Kanoni guy here. The reason I'm doing this is because the first controller can move slightly earlier if I disable a second controller, and it just kind of works out a little bit better when landing. So this saves like half a second or so. So that's kind of convenient. Alrighty, I think I'm starting to be awake now. Welcome to Pandora, where half the population is silent, because the big bad evil guy is sucking all their life energy, and that kind of means that you're mute at this point, which is, well, pretty mean if you ask me, so we kind of need to go and stop that. Either way, the Pandora ruins here are actually an excellent explanation of two things. One, we have a plan for every single room in the game on how we want to traverse it, but sometimes the randomness of enemies is going to alter that slightly. And two, we actually have a way to spawn manipulate pretty much every room. By the way, I want to enter the door on the right here, then I can run straight up, otherwise this tomato guy is going to be in the way. But sometimes he can be in the way anyways with a quick movement. That's the randomness I'm talking about. And over here, I moved to the left to the wall, then dash down right. The sprite will always hit the sword as it is going to get awakened. Then I move down right, down, up left, and this allows me to just manipulate the enemies to be not in the way. In this next room, I hold up left against the wall. This manipulates the spawns that there's no tomato guy at the top of the stairs, making it easier to go downstairs. This zombie is always here. Down right, down left, in order to manipulate more. And this tomato guy actually spawned early, so he could have been in the way, but, well, I was lucky he wasn't. And this was actually pretty fast overall, huh? Alright, fair enough. Alrighty, also this cutscene here, you want to move the camera slightly to the left in order for the camera trigger when you enter the cutscene to be, well, just in the correct position. Also, another little fun fact, if your second player walks far to the left or to the right when you walk into this cutscene, you softlock the game. There's actually a number of softlocks in this game that can occur. Fun fact, you actually crash the game if you walk into this cutscene trigger here at the same time with two characters or with two controllers. Yeah, that can easily happen. And when you do a co-op speedrun of this game, you need to be really careful to not accidentally trigger certain cutscenes at the same time with multiple characters. It's kind of mean. Alrighty, welcome to Wall Phase. Wall Phase here is kind of special in that it has evasion. It's ironically a wall phase, but it has evasion. So what evasion means for bosses specifically is they effectively have a 40% chance to dodge my attacks. So instead of me being able to one-shot this guy, he could just kind of do more shenanigans, and it looks like I was just entirely missing the boss. Let me put it this way. Secret of Mana does have janky hitboxes at times. For the most part they are fine, but sometimes they're a bit janky. But a lot of people attribute Secret of Mana having janky hitboxes because they feel like, oh, I guess I didn't hit the boss or the enemy here, even though my arrow's clearly stuck in this guy's eye. So what actually is happening in this case is bosses start having evasion, and this early on in the game, evasion means that 40% of our attacks are just going to straight up miss. And unfortunately the game is pretty bad at giving you appropriate feedback that you missed, instead of just displaying nothing. So if you never knew that and are wondering why suddenly your weapon swings don't connect when the guy or the eye is open and close on this wall, that's why. It's actually not because you missed, because most likely you do hit since your weapon swings are humongous. It's just the game decided that, no, you're not gonna hit this time. Sorry, buddy. And it's pretty mean if you ask me, because there's just no feedback. The Secret of Mana remake actually does fix that issue that I have. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest flaws about the game, even though I love the game otherwise. Where it just doesn't tell you that you missed, or whether you dealt 0 damage, or whether you just kind of straight up didn't hit the corresponding hitbox. Either way, we go already back down to Gaia's Navel, because this is where the next story plot triggers. So this is quite a little bit of back and forth in the first few areas. The game gets actually a lot more linear after this. Then again, I say linear in that it's more that we revisit certain areas over and over again at the beginning of the game. You actually don't normally have much of a freedom on how you approach the plot triggers and plot points. Well, I say normally because there is actually a way to do the entire early game out of order, but unfortunately it's not terribly efficient, so it's not exactly used in most capacities. Either way, welcome to the underground ship, where there's a Kilroy right here. And Kilroy is pretty much exactly like the Wolf is. 40% of the time, my attacks are just going to miss, and I'm not gonna be able to defeat this guy. Also, at this point it's worth noting, my attacks deal a maximum of 999 damage per swing, no matter how much damage technically I would do. Like with overcharges I can do like 20,000 damage in theory, but practically I'm capped at 999 damage. And however, I can still get a low damage roll on top of this, which means even if I do hit this guy about 20% of the time, well, I do still get a low damage roll. What this means is... oh wow, I get lucky again. I have actually only about a 50-50 shot at one-shotting the Wolf face and the Kilroy, and I actually got both 50-50, so I call that pretty lucky, so that's kind of nice. Alrighty. But yeah, overall, this game here is quite fascinating. Definitely, well, it is my favorite game of all time, as indicated by me having probably played in the neighborhood of like 5,000, 10,000 hours of it. I mean, there's no way for me to really tell, I just spend a lot of time with this game. Also, this is the second safety save of the marathon, because the next boss, you can't just straight up kill me without any warning, so that's less than ideal. Okay, next up we have to go back to the Water Palace, because currently the mana seed of water was stolen. We managed to retrieve it from these thieves in the underground, which, well, you were supposed to go and talk to Luca about it, but you can just skip that step entirely. That's intended. It's just if you know where to go, where the next bosses are, you can go more or less straight there. Okay, in this next section here, this is actually one of the first few instances where it's more efficient for me to manipulate or, well, control both characters at the same time during regular screens where there's enemies, just because it just kind of makes them slightly more consistent as long as I execute properly. The execution part can be very finicky and a little bit tricky, so there's that. Alrighty, what is my best speedrun? I actually don't really remember. It's like 1 hour 44 minutes of this game. It's been a while. Alrighty, the boy can move slightly early thanks to being not the character who talked to the cannon guy. And I actually missed the, like I physically missed the run button with the sprite, so the sprite didn't move fast enough in order to avoid getting hit by that guy. But this room here is absolutely consistent with controlling both characters at the same time. I'm just holding up on the second controller, and this allows me to move through the area slightly more efficiently. Also, by the way, stairs, if you sidestep the stairs, you move slightly faster, because walking the stairs is slow, and while jumping down the stairs is much more efficient, as you might imagine. Either way, welcome to Jabberwocky. Jabberwocky has about 900 HP. Basically, it's kind of another coin flip here. But on top of that, Jabberwocky can use Acid Storm. and he can use that without any indication, no animation. It's just suddenly Acid Storm, and Acid Storm will kill me if I don't manage to deny the damage. Also, you might be wondering, hey, you are completely missing your swing. Trust me, I'm not. Trust me, I'm not actually missing my swing. Because the Jabberwocky's hitbox is actually weirdly below his feet. This is kind of what I meant with Secret of Mana's hitboxes are kind of janky at times. Jabberwocky's hitbox extends from the middle of his body, just like halfway below his feet. It's kind of strange. It's basically offset by 50%, if you know what I mean with that. But hey, while I did miss twice, 2 times 40%, I actually did one-shot him with the third hit, so that's pretty good. He did not use a spell either. Jabberwocky, like Firekickers, uses spells that hit normally all 3 characters, and their damage is balanced around hitting 3 characters with decently much HP and defense. And, well, the sprite would not survive an Acid Storm, because it's just that much damage. Jabberwocky has a ridiculous amount of magic power. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. If you ever get to see Jabberwocky heal, which he has a heal once he's below half HP, it heals him for 500, which is more than half his HP back. It's actually pretty insane. But yeah, we got lucky he didn't use Acid Storm. To be fair, the chance for him to use Acid Storm is actually kind of low. Wow, that guy's in the way. The chance for him to use Acid Storm is pretty low, all things considered, but because there's absolutely no animation or indication for when he is going to cast Acid Storm, it's just, well, I'd rather save before that for a marathon purpose. There is a way for me to survive anyways if I react quick enough. I can actually open up the menu in between the spell animation hitting my character and my character getting hit by the damage. Which, for the boy, it's like a 4-frame window to open up the menu, and for the sprite it's a 3-frame window, I think. So it's very difficult, because while you're charging up a weapon, you actually cannot open up the menu, so only the sprite specifically could open up the menu, and really quickly mashing the menu button with the second controller that you're holding upside down can be a little bit tricky. You learn to love the jank. Actually, that's an interesting point for me personally. One of the things I clearly remember when I was a kid is I was actually somewhat proud on how good I got while playing Super Mario 64 when controlling the camera. The more I played the game, the better I got at controlling the camera, and it actually became kind of a fun little mini-game that is not necessarily supposed to be part of the game, but it actually was still kind of fun for me as a kid at the time. By the way, these pebbles here have also the same evasion as bosses, so 40% of my hits are just going to straight up miss, which is a bit unfortunate, because, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. I just need to hope that we hit. Alright, not too terrible. Kind of slow though, to be fair. But yeah, Secret of Mana for me is a similar deal like that Super Mario 64 example, where AI control cactus getting stuck everywhere is a big annoyance, honestly, but the more you play this game and the better you get at actually manipulating your AI control cactus to not get stuck and hit everywhere, it actually becomes an art. It becomes something that you specifically practice for and know you can do reasonably reliably if you just play your cards well. It's actually quite fun to a weird degree, let's put it that way. Also, by the way, the boy is confused, which is both silence, as in you cannot cast spells, which I guess the boy cannot anyways, and on top of that, your controls are inverted. Whenever my second controller gets inverted, it's actually very confusing because I already have it upside down, so it's actually kind of the correct way around. Which, fun fact, the game in fact does use the fact that there is an upside down control scheme, and actually applies that temporarily to the controller. So if you get confused with your character, go and save and reload the game actually does not revert your controller back to normal state anymore. Also here we have the Spring Beak. The Spring Beak can be pretty mean, but you can also get lucky. Let's see. Nice. Well, this looked like I was way too far away from the Spring Beak. But as mentioned before, melee weapons have their range effectively well, doubled. That's not entirely accurate. It's like 50% more reach, but let's not go with the detail. Either ways, you want to avoid hitting the beak on the spring beak, because that beak is a shield. That shield will prevent melee attacks from properly connecting most of the time, unless you stand really far away. So it can be super difficult to hit spring beak with certain attacks and, well, patterns, so to speak. However, thanks to, well, not being too close, I managed to hit just his body. Springbeak actually has less HP than the previous 3 bosses, and even a low damage roll will one-shot him. So that's kind of nice. By the way, something I did not even mention yet. 2 things. One, the latest name is actually kind of glitched out, and you might have seen it in some text boxes being displayed as go 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 go. And the second thing is, you may have noticed that I did not actually seal the Mana Seed of Earth, because I don't have to. So what I can do is the same here. The Mana Seed of Wind. Our entire mission, the plot point of the game, is to seal all the Mana Seeds. But the game never actually checks whether you seal the Mana Seed of Earth and Wind, so we can just continue on. Who cares? The main reason why we came here is in order to get Sylph magic. Sylph is the Mana Spirit of Wind, and as such we can now cast Wind Elemental magic, which we need in order to proceed down here, past this orb or whatever it is supposed to be. So this is exactly what I'm gonna do here. And sometimes the Silk Tail is pretty nice to use, sometimes it doesn't spawn, sometimes it just hits you like that. It's kind of random, and you just hope to get by relatively easily. That was probably the meanest attack pattern possible, but yeah, it's fine. Alrighty, next up we go into the cave here, and during the speedrun, we actually do a lot of micro optimization here, and it's actually slightly more efficient to select the axe with the boy here, rather than the sprite. Even though normally the sprite is in charge of the weapons, the sprite currently has the menu selected to the magics, and magic means that you need 2 menu movements, either up or down, in order to get to the next area. So it's actually slightly more efficient to stay with the boy. Also, we just straight up walk through this NPC that is guarding this area. You're supposed to talk to the king, and the king allows you to go into the caves over here to, well, do stuff and find Flammy. However, it's just completely unnecessary for you to do so by walking through the NPC. The way that works, by the way, is in non-combat zones and areas. Oh, that's... oh, wow. 2 bosses hit me right... or 2 spells hit right away. Come on, sprite. Not being silly. In non-combat areas, AI-controlled characters can walk through NPCs. A non-combat area is an area where your weapons are not out, as in you cannot charge up your weapon, etc. Which, by the way, fun fact, if you ever level up magic, do not try to level up magic in non-combat area with the lady, because you get half the magic experience. Besides the point, AI-controlled characters can walk through NPCs and such during these areas. So that's actually kind of really convenient, because this allows us to, well, do some shenanigans, like, well, walk straight up through NPCs. Which, by the way, walking through these NPCs is actually based on your camera, because AI-controlled characters cannot move the camera and push it around. It is literally impossible for them. So it's actually kind of important for you to position the camera properly in order to be able to move through the camera. Also, in case you're wondering, this is perfectly normal. The owls do cast silence all the time. What is not so usual is the green owls there casting the Thunderbolt ability on you, which is kind of what I got surprised hit by. Alrighty, welcome to Great Viper. 2 notable things about the Great Viper. One is, this is the first boss who has more than 1000 HP. So even a maximum damage hit with 999 is not going to one-shot him. And 2, he's the last boss that does not have actual evasion. Which means as long as I time my attack properly, he will get hit and it will get knocked out in one hit. Or well, the second hit, I suppose. Oh yeah, actually something I haven't mentioned yet. You might be wondering, hey, how do you keep executing the same charge attack over and over again? And that's actually a separate glitch aside from the overcharge glitch that I haven't even explained yet. What you can do is you can actually trick the game into keeping your current charge attack level. What I mean with this is you can do this even without overcharging, like you charge up your weapon to level 8 because you have a really high level weapon, you grinded a bunch for that in the mana fortress, etc. And then you charge up your weapon to level 8. It takes a really long time to do so, like, I don't know, 15 to 20 seconds depending on your agility. And what you can do is you can use a second controller while you have that level 8 charge attack charged, and then you release the charge attack with inside the menu. Then you close the menu and immediately repress the charge attack button, and you simultaneously release the charge attack but also keep it. So you do the attack animation, but the game also does not renew your charge attack level back to the previous number. So you effectively can reuse the same charge attack over and over again as soon as your stamina hits 100%. Which is very convenient if you try to, like, well, deal a lot of damage to enemies and you need to use very specific charge attacks. I don't have to redo my charge attack every time again and again, which is kind of a big deal, to say the least. Flammy! Fun fact, if you talk to Flammy, it just kind of makes that whirring sound. It's pretty cute. Alrighty. Next up, we go to the desert. The reason why we go to the desert before we go to the ice country is you can directly fly from the desert over to the ice country and back to the desert. However, if you try to do the reverse and fly from the ice country over to the desert when you go to the ice country first, the cannon travel guide will tell you that you don't have enough gunpowder in order to go to the desert directly. The reason for this is because this Lost in the Desert cutscene actually does not occur. This Lost in the Desert cutscene does not occur from the ice country, so the game just circumvents that by sending you back over to Matango first. However, if you already completed this sequence here where you get lost in the desert, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So in a speedrun setting, it is very slightly faster to go to the desert first, go back to the ice country and then back to the desert, rather than going over to the ice country and then to the desert, just because you have to make a pit stop in Matango in order to do this the other way around. Alrighty, next up, these guys, we are supposed to be in the machine room here, so this is where in normal play, your character party actually gets split up and you have to find your characters one by one again in order to proceed the story. This is for the speedrun for one player 2 controller, the first time we actually encounter the sprite as well as, well, as the lady. And the lady actually never got properly initiated, so we actually don't get her weapon, which is the claw weapon, even though she comes equipped with it. As well as she does not have any equipment, and more importantly, her spells actually don't get reset. So if we actually were able to name the lady right here, her spell actually would get reset to not having any spells, which would be kind of bad. So it's a good thing that we don't get to name her. But, well, the bad thing is that she has a 24 letter name right here with go 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 go, and this does in fact cost us, like, I don't know, half a minute over the course of the run because the text boxes takes that much longer. Kind of crazy, actually. Alrighty. Next up, the lady of course is also level 1 and has no armor and equipment. There's that too. And before I do anything else, she's also going to get the whip. I don't know why I equipped the sprite with the whip, that's kind of silly. So welcome to the last boss who has less than 1000 HP, which means we can one-shot him. However, practically, he does have evasion, so chances are 40% of the time I'm going to straight up miss, and 20% of the time I do hit, I'm going to not deal enough damage to one-shot him. So this was a miss. And this was a hit. Second hit. Well, I suppose that's kind of about expected with a coin flip. Alrighty, and now we have the lady in the party, and she actually gains levels immediately. From 45 HP at the bottom, you can see her in the center. She jumps up to 104, so basically she more than doubles her HP, and that's kind of important for survivability, because otherwise she will get one-shot by enemies in the next area. Which, to be fair, wouldn't technically be the worst. You're supposed to not get hit, but let me tell you, I never realized that as a kid, but the ice country is probably one of the meanest areas to run through because the wolves are just absolutely vicious. So here we actually get a little bit of an armor upgrade. The fastest speedrun does not actually get an armor upgrade here, and you save a little bit of time for a multitude of reasons, like, well, not buying equipment in the first place, but also, it is just rather dangerous to do, so we don't do this during a marathon run. So, upgrading the equipment, well, equipping the new equipment. Silver armband for you. Also, we're going to cast Ice Saber on everybody. This gives everybody 2 or 3 attacks where they can freeze enemies. Freezing enemies means we turn them into cute little snowmen that don't do anything bad to you. Which, fun fact, Ice Saber does not actually deal ice elemental damage. It's still neutral damage. So the Ice Gigas casting Ice Saber onto you in the fight is in fact helping you. You in fact deal more damage than you would before he cast Ice Saber onto you. It's very convenient. Because you also get your base damage slightly increased whenever you use Ice Saber. Okay, that was pretty lucky so far. The wolves have been cooperative, and I also, well, took a little bit of a more risky approach through this area. Either way, the wolves have really fast attack patterns and movement speed, so they are just really mean. And if I don't freeze them first try, they can be quite a menace, to say the least. Come on, over here. Right. Didn't get hit, but the lady kind of got sidetracked there a little bit and caught up, so I needed to free her. Also, that wolf does not usually attack you this fast. I actually intentionally spawned him in order to avoid spawning 3 wolves in side areas. Alright. Here we have Boreal Face. It's kind of like Tropicolor 2.0 in a glitchless speedrun. This guy is actually quite a menace because... this guy is actually quite a menace in his glitchless speedrun, because he has so much magic evasion or magic defense that nuking him with Spelled, which is still the most efficient thing to do, just takes a really long time. Kind of crazy actually. Also, of course, he has evasion, even though it's a static plant, you don't need to worry about it too much. Oh wait. And yeah, we defeat him. Okay, that was Ice Country Part 1. That actually went reasonably well. Could be slightly better, but overall this went quite swimmingly, not getting knocked around by the wolves all the time. And we only missed once against the Boreal Face here. Part 2 is going to be slightly, well, different than you might expect from a casual playthrough. First of all, we're going to talk to a random NPC right here, and then we move the second controller up the little podium and interact with the oven here before even talking to the green guy. So this is an excellent demonstration of if you skip a step in a cutscene sequence, the game gets a little bit confused and it's just one step behind every time. So when we open up the oven, normally it's supposed to make Salamando appear, but instead what happens is the green guy disappears. And as soon as Salamander disappears after the cutscene here, he appears here now because we are a step behind. And we are talking to this Scorpion gang here to the right side, which hasn't appeared yet because they are behind it. And when they are supposed to walk away and disappear, they actually appear. So basically the entire cutscene sequence was just one step behind the entire time. So that's kind of a pretty intriguing explanation on how this works, I would say. Because the reason why this is relevant is we are going to go over to the Fire Palace instead of the Ice Palace right now. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to retrieve the Mana Seed of Fire from the Ice Palace because Santa stole it, I'm not joking, and well, you're supposed to retrieve it. What this means is now we don't have the Mana Seed of Fire, so if we just complete the sequence in the Fire Palace the normal way, you arrive in the Mana Seed room and, well, people say, huh, the Mana Seed is not here, we probably should try and retrieve it. But this is where we kind of use the messing up the sequence of an area to our advantage. What we're gonna do is we're going to skip one step in the Fire Palace sequence, and that is we are going to not activate the orb in the basement of the Fire Palace. Which means the entire Fire Palace cutscene plot sequence is one step behind, and once we arrive in the room, the Fire Palace does not actually yet know that the seed should have been stolen at this point. Consequently, the seed is there and we can steal it. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through the main entrance here, and we're going to do some interesting shenanigans here. So first of all, I'm going to give a barrel to you, and a barrel to you. Then we can run in here, cast healing on everybody, switch over to the boy, use the latest menu in order to cast a barrel on her too. Get out of my way, please, get out of my way. Oh, thank you. And then we go up here. Alright, so what just happened is, normally that ramp there pushes your cactus back down very vehemently. It's very difficult to get up that ramp normally, but you can actually do it with just punching and punching and punching again. It's kind of funny. Oh, I cast the wrong spell. How did I do that? Brain, please. Either way, we basically just skipped one of these orbs I just activated with the sprite's magic here in the basement, which normally needs you to cast Exploder. However, because we skipped that, the entire sequence of the Fire Palace is behind by one step, and it doesn't realize that, hey, the Mana Seed of Fire is stolen. Well, it's not right now, so we can kind of skip that part. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. Further, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my second controller to move over there, hit the switch. Oh, I actually didn't want to move quite far enough over. Hit the switch, cast a spell with the sprite, hit a rope wall at the same time, which allows me to move through the wall with the second controller. Move over here, then up there, we hit the orb with freeze. But we do that twice, and this kind of opens up the game to some weird shenanigans where we are carrying over the event sequence where the game thinks that we are still activating a freeze orb into the next room, skipping the trigger that normally locks us into the arena, and we can just run straight through the Minotaur boss and completely ignoring this poor guy. It's kind of interesting. And then we seal the Mana Seed of Fire and we're out of here. Because we didn't defeat the boss or complete the Mana Seed, the Fire Palace sequence, the enemies actually outside here are still here, which means they are kind of tricky to avoid at times, like this guy just spawning, etc. But we are fine here. Okay, so the reason why we can skip the Minotaur, which by the way, shout out to a Japanese runner who figured out that you can do that. I unfortunately don't remember their name. The way this works is basically whenever you activate an event, the game tries to execute that event at the next possible moment. However, the execution of that event can be slightly delayed by specific timings and movements, which allows us to execute the event where the sprite hits the freezing orb twice, or the second time, in the next room. Normally in that next room, you're supposed to walk into the room with your party automatically via cutscene, and the torches block the way out until you defeat the Minotaur. However, because we just straight up walk through the sequence and initiate that weird freeze orb the second time inside the room, it skips that part entirely. Also, speaking of skipping parts, I'm normally supposed to talk to Mara here, which gives you the key to enter the sewers, but this is an area where there are NPCs, so we could just straight up walk through NPCs, kind of like we walked through NPCs earlier in the run already. But we also can just avoid the cutscene trigger entirely, where the guy blocks the entrance to the sewers, by pushing ourselves pixel perfect against the wall. By the way, why exactly the sewer area has a connection from North Town to South Town? I'm not entirely sure. I feel like it kind of misses the point of sewers, but every good RPG needs a sewer level. I'm also going to give the sprite and the lady here a bit of MP while we are ballooning these enemies. A balloon is actually a stun for about 8 seconds. So I don't exactly know why a balloon, but I actually really appreciate that it's balloons. Please don't get knocked out. Ow, alright. Oops, wrong button. Alright, this was pretty unlucky where they just kind of kept attacking her at the exactly wrong time. So these goldfish here are pretty mean, as you might expect, because, well, they give you a lot of trouble, so I'm just gonna do the easy way and balloon them. It's not necessary, there is methods and movements and techniques to get by them reasonably consistently without doing that. Also, hi. Oh my goodness, these enemies are just being mean right now. We have 3 left. Alright. By the way, do not go into this room here while the boy is a snowman. You will soft lock the game. Alrighty, the sewer sequence is one of the more finicky sections to try and run through efficiently and quickly. So if you are really good at sewers, you probably gain like 10 to 20 seconds over me consistently, because I'm not good at them. Okay, next area we go in here is the North Town. North Town is where the North Town ruins are, as indicated by the name, where we also need to defeat the next 2 bosses, and the next boss isn't too bad, but the boss after that, well, he is kind of a half a nightmare for a run that does not use magic for the most part, well, at least not for damage purposes. Well, you will see. Vampire's going to be quite a big meanie. Sorry, skip the split. Okay. The lady, of course, knocks out her best friend, so she can be treated and something like that? I don't actually know what. By the way, fun fact, if you press the B button 1 frame after the cutscene ends here, you can actually remotely interact with the chest in the top left. There's various places where you can actually effectively grab chests from a remote area, and it's kind of funny, because it definitely does not look like you should be able to interact with these chests, because you're just shaking air and suddenly you're getting the weapon orb. Let me try to get this real quick, just for demonstration. I didn't get it. It's frame perfect. Actually, it might be more than frame perfect, it might actually also be very reliant on specifics, but it's kind of difficult to tell. Either way, welcome to the North Town Ruins, where we have a plan for every single room, but every single room can go wrong. Normally the sprite does not get hit there. But, well, it was rather inconsequential, so we're fine. If you get hit by either blue slimes or the red slimes, you get crowd controlled for a while, and it can turn out to be really bad, because we're trying to go fast. Here we move up, flop, and then we run past. The green slime can move in your way if you're unlucky like that. This enemy here we have to hit before he hits us. He will otherwise hit the sprite and the lady. The sprite currently would be a one-shot, so, well, that would be less than ideal. Because, while having a ghost isn't too bad, we can easily revive them. The problem is actually about ghosts that they cannot run. Like, they literally can only walk, so it would be kind of slow having a ghost in your party, even though it wouldn't be bad beyond that. So next up, we go ahead and just move through here. And over here. This is where I'm also going to activate the second controller again, in order to walk through this door slightly more efficiently and faster, I should also have switched over to the lady, because now this bat is going to hit me. That's just what happens when you enter this room with the boy and try to run through like we do. Also, in this room here, we go down right and go straight down. This is mostly fine. Sometimes it's a little bit spooky. In this room here, I hug the left wall in order to spawn this guy, wait until he spawns another enemy, because that way only one of these little imp devil thingies here spawns in this room, and they have less of a chance to cast a spell at you that could stop you in your tracks. Also, if they hit you with their fire attack, they will engulf you in flames. So that's also rather less than ideal. I swing here with the boy, actually not because I want to hit the eye, but because I want to slightly delay my attack right there. Alrighty, I hit slightly late with the boy here, but let's see. So I'm positioning the lady here in the front because I want her to tank the spell so the boy can attack with basically impunity. Oh, this is not good. Oh no. Oh no. You do not want to kill both eyes in this game here. That is not a good thing. I might get lucky here. Okay, I got lucky. Alright. Okay, so here's the thing. If you kill both eyes of the wall, they will go into a special kind of phase where... no pun intended. They will go into a special kind of phase where it will throw physical spells at you and crowd control one of your characters. So the character that is first away from the wall phase gets dragged around the room, continuously damaged, and you can no longer control that character. And the character closest will get nuked by physical, well, rocks falling from the ceiling and you die. Well, you don't quite die. It's actually not that threatening in terms of damage, but because we have effectively no armor and are under-leveled, it actually does in fact have a rather severe consequence for the speedrun. Casually, it's not that big of a deal to kill both eyes, but yeah, you do want to avoid that in the speedrun. I got lucky that I immediately managed to knock out the middle eye afterwards though, so we're mostly fine. Okay, next up, by the way, this cutscene here is one of the big reasons as to why I prefer speedrunning and also marathon running on the SNES Mini. The SNES Mini, once again, it reduces the flickering and flashing effects tremendously by layering a filter over the games, and it just makes the flashing in that cutscene so much less extreme. Such as this, so it's actually much nicer overall. Alrighty, here, welcome to the boss that can troll you the most in a speedrun. I think the most time I lost to this guy, completely due to none of my own fault, was like 6 minutes. Well, let's see how Vampire is going to go today. I'm trying to hit him with the sprite here. This actually went pretty well. We're going to switch weapons here. Position the sprite in a way where the sprite is going to get eaten or attacked by or grabbed by the vampire while casting slowdown spell. Just messed it up. That is not gonna work. One less, actually. Alright. This is gonna be pretty awkward with timing now. Unfortunately, I got the wrong charge attack. The reason why that's so bad is because now the charge attack is going to be very much off-sync compared to how I want to try and hit this boss. What I'm trying here is I cast Speed Down in order to lock the vampire into position and delay his eating animation so it takes him longer to actually, in fact, eat the sprite. Wow! I must have gotten a phantom hit there somewhere. This guy has more than 1000 HP more than the previous boss. Okay, that was, I guess, a good recovery? Either way, the strategy is to just lock him down with spells. The way this works effectively is I use the spell animation in order for the vampire to just kind of delay its action. So while it is trying to execute its animation, it gets stopped by the slowdown spell effect. The slowdown doesn't actually do anything, it doesn't deal damage. It's just literally to delay his animation, so I can get in more and more hits while he is still jumping around or while on the ground. Because Vampire can just fly away and you literally cannot hit Vampire while it is flying around. It is impossible. With physical attacks, you can nuke him with spells, which is what I recommend you to do. So yeah, I got really lucky there somehow, so I'm not unhappy about that. 2500 HP, yeah. He actually has relatively low magic defense compared to previous bosses, to be fair, but it is still a lot overall. Alright, so here, I want the lady to get knocked out. If you get lucky, he knocks out the lady in 2 hits. Or you can actually intentionally kill her off in previous encounters in combat and boss fights in order to guarantee that she gets knocked out in 2 hits. Or, if you didn't buy armor, she guaranteed gets knocked out in 2 hits. The reason why we want to have a character knocked out, it doesn't have to be the lady, she just has the lowest HP and defense because she joined us the latest. The reason why we want to do this is because, as mentioned before, AI control characters can walk through NPCs in non-combat area. However, the castle coming up is actually considered the combat area as indicated by your weapons being drawn. So what this means is we can have her walk straight through NPCs anyways, despite it being a combat area, because wild ghosts can walk through NPCs by default. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to activate the second controller here, and the second controller gets positioned over to the right, just to the right of the stairs, walking the stairs, and disable the controller just in time. I used the wrong... It's fine. Either way, basically I revive her just behind the guards, and this means I'm actually going to skip the entire sequence where we got caught in prison, thrown to the mental mantis, and there's also no enemies in the entire cast, which is very convenient. Oh hey! It's actually kind of a nice roll up to the castle top, where, well, the boss is, or well, the NPCs are not even surprised that we managed to escape their amazing scheme? I don't know. Oh, by the way, fun fact. During this cutscene here, or at the end of it, as well as during the next boss fight, you somehow gain weapon experience. And also as a fun fact, this is pretty much the reason as to why I'm like 90% certain that the Secret of Mana remake, hey, we leveled up, nice demonstration. This is why I'm 90% certain that the Secret of Mana remake actually uses the original code of the Secret of Mana ROM in order to play the remake, so to speak. Because, okay, I actually messed this up. He is not supposed to dash across there. Either way, this is why I'm so certain, because it happened to me in the remake that the boss, I leveled up my weapons as well after the cutscene. Like, I think in the Secret of Mana remake what they did is they took the original game code and just kind of put a wrapper around it for making it more modern. But this is why it's so eerily familiar with literally every little movement in so many cases. Because they literally use the original code. It's kind of fascinating to me. Alrighty. By the way, in case you're wondering about the remake, in my opinion, I like it. It's a bit of a mixed bag, and it's less than I would like it to be, but it's a decent casual experience. Also, I actually really enjoyed the music in the remake, even though, to be completely fair... hang on. Excuse me, I need to brain before I can climb here. Even though in the remake, one of the unfortunate things is the music in the remake is really good in my opinion. The problem is actually that it's not particularly good game music or background music. It's way too distracting, way too strong. Alrighty, now we're gonna go mountain climbing in a bit of an unusual way. Don't cast Exploder. Ah, Sprite, no, don't go down there. Come on. Sprite, stop! Stop running away, seriously. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is going to be pretty awkward here. Alright, we still managed to make it. The sprite walking away is actually bad because it will block the camera boundaries, and it makes it a bit more difficult to run up here. So this is of course not quite how you're supposed to climb the mountain, but we're actually not skipping a sequence here. This is literally just to speed up the process of climbing the mountain. Alright. Also, the reason why we wanted to level up the sprite's weapon here is because... Wait, that's... Ah, my goodness. Controller, I have them completely wrong right now. Sorry. We execute a level 1 charge attack with the sprite, talk with the sage here from the side, and the sprite somehow can just jump straight through the wall. And we are in the doppelganger area, which means this little jump just skipped the Palace of Darkness, the Temple of Light, the Temple of the Moon, Tasnica, and well, it's quite fast. Also, a little fun fact about these grey blobs, the shapeshifters, they actually literally have no attack. They don't deal damage. Kind of weird, but normally blobs attack you when they split up and, well, summon other monsters. But, well, the grey blobs, they literally don't. It's kind of weird. They never deal any damage to you directly. They will deal damage, however, through the means of summoning various relatively high-level monsters. However, if you play this game casually, when you arrive here, you usually will have Gold City equipment, which means you literally take 0 damage from the doppelgangers coming up. Which actually means there's a decent chance, if you play this game casually, you might not actually know that there's an alternative way of defeating doppelgangers by literally dying. Like, I'm not joking. Here, I let the boy and the sprite get knocked out, their corresponding doppelgangers actually just straight up disappear. And then I knock out the lady and we win. Why? I'm not entirely sure, to be completely frank with you. But, well, this is kind of how this works here. Either way, you get fully healed and also your MP restored in this cutscene, which is a bit unusual. Normally, after boss fights in this game or leveling up, you do not recover your MP. You do in the remake and also in the randomizer, so that's kind of a nice quality of life. Alrighty. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the ice country. Guess why? Oh dear. Wait. Northeast, southwest. I'm kind of infamous for getting lost in the world map. Alrighty, if you guessed that we are going to grab a shield that is supposed to revive you after you die inside the Ice Palace, you're correct. Because that's exactly what we're gonna do. Okay, short note. If you never died in the Ice Palace, you might not actually know that if you get killed in the Ice Palace, instead of game over like normally, you have the boy revived and gets summoned outside the Ice Palace. That Ice Palace shield, as we call it, actually gets removed when you enter the Ice Country or you complete the Ice Palace itself. So that shield normally does no longer exist in casual play, but because we never completed the Ice Palace, we just land there, grab the shield, or well, it's basically just a flag, that in case you die, you go there, and well, this is kind of what we do right here. So basically, the entire reason as to why I do this is because I wanna die in this cutscene. And, well, not cutscene. But basically, doing this is going to knock out all my characters, but, as mentioned before, we don't actually get knocked out. Let me actually think about this real quick, because this sequence coming up is a little bit complicated. Alright. So, I revived the other two characters because, well, they got knocked out and only the boy gets revived. Now, the cutscene inside the sunken temple is a bit messed up, to say the least. The lady gets revived. Actually, I did that backwards. I should have revived the sprite first. Oh well, it's gonna be a little bit awkward now. Wait, no. Wait, no. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I need to... Wait, is that right? No, this was right. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, never mind. This was correct. Okay, this is a little bit strange right now. Give me just a moment. Alright, sorry. Needed to get rid of my jacket because it's a little bit warm in here right now. Alrighty, so I just created a corrupted save file by landing and saving at the Frost Forest Nico. The Frost Forest Nico is the only save point in the entire game where you can land with Flammy and save immediately without having to go through any screen transitions. The way the game saves data to your save file is, for example, in order to know where you are supposed to reload and respawn, it checks the entrance value, where you last entered the screen from, and saves you in that specific position. However, because we actually landed with Flammy, that entrance value is null, there's nothing in there. The game tries to save that data and it kind of corrupts the save file in a way where, well, there's nothing in there. If you try to load the save file normally, it's going to crash the game. However, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold Start, Select L and R, basically a soft reset, for a few seconds, longer than usual, and the game does not wipe out the values where I currently am. Then I'm going to load the save file right here that is corrupted, and it's going to load me back into the beginning cutscene that I was just in. But because I already completed that cutscene, the cutscene only gets executed halfway. And what this means, it hides my character, which is the first thing it does in that screen in the cutscene, but then it also teleports me over to Podos because I'm not supposed to be in that screen anymore. That's not how it works, normally anyways. What this means is now that I have some invisible characters. You can make your characters visible again by having them execute the healing animation specifically. So what I just did now is I have an invisible character in the party. The lady's right here. I can move her around, you just can't see it. And this is where she is. Now, invisible characters have some strange properties, where, for example, this guy is not normally supposed to be here. This is why we actually intentionally died to the watermelon, a boss fight. He's still here, and what I want to do now is I want to go to these stairs and traverse the Grand Palace here backwards. What I'm gonna do here is I'm going to select the lady. I'm just taking my time with the explanation because we are ahead of schedule anyways, by the way. I'm taking control of the lady here, and I'm going to have the lady face to the left. The lady is right here, by the way. And then I press the interact button, the B button. You see the NPC turn around as soon as I do that. The reason for this is invisible characters do not calculate the distance between themselves and the enemies, consequently, characters. Consequently, you can always interact with NPCs because the distance has not yet been calculated, as long as you're facing to the left. Why to the left, I don't know. Either way, in short, I can interact with this NPC from up there, and as soon as I interact with it, let me actually demonstrate with the sprite. As long as I interact with the sprite here, the boy can briefly walk through walls while I'm interacting with this guy. It basically initiates a cutscene dialogue sequence briefly, but because this guy is not supposed to have dialogue, it just kind of immediately cancels it again, but I can briefly walk through cutscenes. So consequently, what I can do is I can enter this room, have the lady face to the left. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Have the lady face to the left and just walk through the walls right here. Very easy. Okay, next up. I'm just gonna take my time here because I messed up the initial setup. I'm gonna give the sprite the whip. And there we go. So, I'm going to just take it easy here and cast Balloon. You try to normally hit this guy at the same time as everything else, but it is actually pretty dangerous to try and do that the normal way, because he likes to spawn wolves, and we have basically no equipment at this point, and so it's rather dangerous to just go through here. So I did this entire sequence wrong, it's fine. So, I hit these three switches. This activates the boss, or the mini-boss here in the main room, and consequently I can now defeat it. I'm actually supposed to activate this entire sequence differently and skip this boss fight too, but I actually messed it up, so I'm just gonna roll with it. So, we now defeat this poor little guy, and he is out for the count. But yeah, basically you hit these three switches in the previous area, which allows you to then subsequently just move through this area here more efficiently. By the way, if you skip the little fish, lizard, dragon thingy bonk fight, Hexus here is bugged out and you cannot hit her with physical attacks until you hit her with a spell or ranged attack once. It's weird. Either way, we just skipped the entirety of the underground sunken continent and Grand Palace. So welcome to Sigurd of Mana, where we do weird shenanigans in order to run through the game slightly faster. So I'll need to switch this back. Right, and we should be back to mostly normal now. Except that, alright, she's going to cast Dispel Magic, I'm okay with this. Dispel Magic is not particularly dangerous. The lady is invisible, but she's still technically closer to the boss than the boy. And I want the other characters to be the ones that tank the spells. Except that I don't want the sprite to get knocked out here because I accidentally lost my charge attack. Alright, I need to redo my charge attack real quick. I'm making a bit more of a mess of this than usual. I was trying to explain stuff, but while explaining I kind of got confused about things. Alright, the boy got pigment, which means I'll lose my charge attack as well. This is why you normally want to have the boy in front rather than anybody else. I need to remove the pygmy status. And at this point, I have one medical orb left. Okay, I think we can do things again here. The lady is dead, but we can revive her again. It's gonna be fine. Look at the bright side, now that the lady is right there again for a slide. Oh, I changed her. Oh, that's not good. I changed her into a different form. The reason why that's not good is because she has a lot more casting invulnerability frames, and hitting her in between here is pretty awkward. Unless she stopped casting for a second. Alright, we got it. Alright, that was a mess. Sorry about that. Oh boy, okay. We're fine. It's not technically dangerous as long as I play it fine, but yeah, it can be tricky. Either way, we're gonna go into this next room over here and actually safe warp back into the room again. This actually skips text box, but it resets my items inventory and my levels back to the previous state. So every time I do this save warp here, it effectively loads my previous state of where I was at the time, so in terms of progression, etc. But because I'm already in this boss fight here, I actually effectively can go ahead and start beating Mech Rider number 3 right here. Funnily enough, even in the one player 2 controller speedrun, you fight all 3 of the Mech Riders, which is interesting because a lot of the other duplicates you do end up skipping. Just not this one. Alrighty, Mech Rider number 3 is actually, well, not the smartest. So what he tries to do is he casts Wall on himself, which reflects spells, and then he tries to buff himself with speed up. And he keeps trying to buff himself with speed up as long as he doesn't have a buff. But he never gets a buff because he bounces the buffs over to us instead. So that's literally all he does. Also, because I'm at the bottom of the arena, he cannot actually charge across the screen and hit me with it. This is what I was supposed to do during the Mech Rider 2 fight, but one of the characters was slightly too high up, so he started dashing across the screen. Either way, we managed to defeat Mech Rider, and now, plot-wise, what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to go into the Pure Lands, defeat like 6 bosses over there, watch a big cutscene, and then go into the Mana Fortress. Of course, in a speedrun, we kind of like to skip stuff, so we skip that. And the way we're going to do this, there's 2 methods of doing that. One is you can get a rope pull event and execute it on the Mana Fortress in the Lofty Mountains. Alternatively, and the much funnier version, which also is faster, and I actually am happy that it's faster, we can go ahead and execute a different event over here, near Pandora. But it's a marathon run. I'm gonna go ahead and save the game real quick, because you could easily die in this section here, so I'd like to try and prevent that. Also, I'm gonna just save over a separate save file, because maybe I can use the save warp again in case I get knocked out early. Just save this stuff. Either way, again, because we are a little bit ahead of schedule, I'm gonna take my time a little bit to explain what is going to happen, rather than just rush through it like you would normally in a speedrun. So first of all, let me get rid of this mushroom here, because it's kind of in the way. Either way, this little guy is quite interesting, because what it does is, as soon as you touch it, you're supposed to get lifted up onto the ledge above, like that. Boop, boop, boop. And, well, then you're up here. Slight shortcut. It's kind of neat. Very cute. Now, however, what I'm going to do instead is I will have the sprite charge up a level 1 sword swing. So this is a level 1 sword charge attack. It makes your character lunge forward and do a swing attack. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the sprite positioned in a way where he is just about to jump onto the little guy, like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull Flammy via the Flammy drum, just before the sprite reaches the little thing, which means the sprite continues the lunge attack, because normally your movement gets entirely stopped while calling Flammy, but the lunge attack continues, jumps into the little hop guy, and instead of the mana fortress telling you that you can't be here because there's a barrier in the way, you more or less literally jump over the barrier. And I love kind of that visual metaphor, because you actually execute the jump here still, which by default is to the left. Alright, and that's kind of all there is to it. Uh-oh. By the way, we have no defense. Which means we get one-shot by all enemies here. Almost all enemies, there's exceptions. But yeah, welcome to the Mana Fortress, which is pretty dangerous. Alright, 1 cup of wishes, I need to replenish them. This could be bad. Okay, fine, alright. I want to spawn these tsunami-type enemies here, in order to be able to walk through the wall here. Okay, the bow accidentally attacked, this is fine. I'm gonna just... Yeah, okay. This is fine. I was just considering whether I should... You normally want to use the barrels here, because this is going to speed up the process of running through the wall slightly. So this is a rope pull next to the sprite, and hitting it after using an item is going to allow us to walk through walls for a certain amount of time. It's kind of weird, but basically this is a slightly faster method of going over to the left side than it would normally be to go the normal way. We're not technically skipping anything aside from, well, skipping going through the entirety of the path. And here I'm going to use a boomerang level 7 in order to hit the rope pull on the right side, in order to be able to go through here. Because otherwise the sprite is the one to hit the rope pull, but we need a weapon to hit the rope pull on the other side. So the boomerang, the higher level you charge a ranged weapon, the further your projectiles fly. And the boomerang happens to be just the right distance. I'm not supposed to play it safe. I'm just going to avoid getting hit here. The boomerang has just the right distance with a level 7 overcharge attack in order to be able to circumvent that entirely. But yeah, this is how we get through this area here. Now, I'm going to switch the boy back to the sword, the spear, because wish me luck, because I will need it against Buffy here. I did not select the sprite. Oh, alright. What you want to have happen is Buffy jumping twice, because then you get a really nice setup, kind of like you... Oh, I didn't do that either. Then you get a really nice setup, kind of like you do against the previous Buffy fight. Oh well, we can work with this. So, Buffy here. The only spell we survive is Dispel Magic, because it doesn't do damage. And here we are effectively just at the mercy of RNG, as in randomness / luck. We need to wait until Buffy jumps down, because I cannot hit this guy until after this. That's my... So I'm using an item after every time Buffy does stuff in order to, well, deny the damage from the spells. Also, Buffy just came down briefly and I got 1 hit in, but unfortunately that was just 1. Didn't quite work out. Okay, the sprite might get knocked out here. I'm going to try and cast a spell. Aww, right. Did not quite work out in my favor. Buffy is not giving us a good pattern right now. Either way, I'm just using items after Buffy attacks with spells in order to deny the damage. Oh, Buffy is continuing to jump, so let's see whether I can get a good pattern going here. The sprite managed to get in position. The sprite should be grabbed by Buffy now. I should hit Buffy here. Maybe it's a bit tight. Okay, my pattern should now normalize, so I should hit Buffy as soon as it comes out of the hell here. Alright. Basically I'm trying to hit Buffy as soon as the spell ends, but leave it as little time as possible to be able to continue the hitting animation. But I unfortunately kind of mess this up with this specific charge attack. I should just redo the charge attack. Okay, we have a normal slash again. Normal slash is more efficient for these kinds of shenanigans. Also, the sprite got knocked out. By the way, fun fact, the Royal Jam. And as a matter of fact, revive cactus from 0 HP. Which, by the way, Cure Water can do, but Candy and Chocolate cannot. It's actually technically a slightly different thing than otherwise would be. Oh, the sprite is going to get knocked out of bounds here. I have to move with the lady up. Otherwise we're gonna potentially softlock the game here. Alright, I think I have him in a good pattern here now. There we go, one more hit. Oh, that was a mess. But that's kind of Buffy. You dynamically need to adjust what Buffy does if you don't get the optimal beginning pattern. And then you just hope that it works out. Okay, managed to defeat Buffy. Welcome to the next part of the Mana Fortress. Once again, pretty much all enemies here will kind of kill us if I move slightly wrong. The AI is actually a little bit random on how they move through this area here in particular. So I need to manipulate their movement very carefully, otherwise I might get stuck and the enemies can very easily just knock me out straight up. These wolves here usually cast Cure Water on themselves first action. I don't know why, but it's very convenient because they will one-shot me kind of like most other enemies. And alright. The tsunamis have a little bit of a window after they attack. Also, I want these tsunamis on the left side to spawn, that way none of the tsunamis over here spawn. By the way, the tsunamis are these blue slime thingies. Alrighty, and welcome to Dread Slime. It's very dreadful. Okay, the reason why Dread Slime is actually kind of a menace is because this guy here, he casts Acid Storm all the time. And while he's casting Acid Storm, he's completely invulnerable to damage from physical nature. And because I have basically no equipment, I get one-shot by all the spells. Also, Dread Slime is unusual because it always targets the cac that is the furthest away from the cac. From all of them. So I'm actually keeping the boy in the center, and the Dread Slime continuously changes direction from the lady over to the sprite and vice versa. So that's that. So I need to time my attacks after Acid Storm dissipates a little bit in order to be able to hit physically. Otherwise the Acid Storm will literally prevent the physical attack from hitting, since spell casting and vulnerability is a thing too. Like this one attack right there. I literally couldn't hit Dread Slime because it was just during the spell casting and vulnerability. But there's no way for me to know when Dread Slime is going to cast, he just casts all the time. This might hit knock out Dread Slime if I'm lucky, and I'm lucky. Alright, not bad. I've had it twice ever, where Dread Slime did not cast any spells at all. So this is very, very unusual. Dread Slime almost always casts a ton of spell on you, and you have to just react to it when he does it, and you need to also get lucky. By the way, at this point we are high enough level that our agility is high enough, which consequently also means our chance to hit is high enough in order to be able to hit all the enemies. By the way, these level up texts you can skip by opening up a full screen menu. But I kind of forgot about that while talking about other stuff, so it was just faster to wait at that point. Alrighty. Last part of the Mana Fortress, one of the scariest ones, because once again, all enemies will pretty much one-shot us, and if I move wrong, they can one-shot my entire party. So let's not have that happen, that is very unhealthy. Yeah, okay, that's actually unusual. This guy did not actually kill us in one shot. Alright, Balloon to the rescue. This guy also casts usually Stone Saber. That was a movement error on my end. You're not supposed to spawn these enemies. Speaking of which, that guy is not supposed to spawn either. Let's revive the sprite before I do anything else. And then we're gonna balloon everybody again. So the engulfed in flame here is going to actually, well, paralyze the lady. Right? Where are you? Did I bounce back the balloon spell? Feels like it. Ooh. Well, we have one cup of wishes left. It'll be fine. Alright, don't get hit by that guy. You wait until he goes down. Don't get hit by that guy. Oh, he normally casts a spell. That's scary when he doesn't. Alright, go down right into this room, trying to despawn all enemies. Come on, lady. Don't get stuck there, please. Down right into this room. Despawns all enemies. Move down right on this bridge here to spawn all enemies on the bridge, but you actually want to spawn the Master Ninjas in the next room. I didn't. Now there's 3 Terminators on the right side here. The Gold Armor Knights are the Terminators, they will one-shot us if they hit us. They usually cast, Why are you getting stuck there, lady? Oh boy. Alright, the boy actually just saved us here by attacking these guys. I need to sneak by them real quick. Let me through, please. Alright, we're fine. That's a lot spookier than it should be. Alright, welcome to the Dark Lich fight. Dark Lich always alternates between physical ability, which can be blocked by a barrel, and then a spell, which cannot be blocked by a barrel. Optimally, he either stays above ground the entire time and just lets me hit him, or he immediately dives on the ground where we can use a very, very short AI loop that looks like a glitch in order to lock him into a headbang state, what we call it. Oh, alrighty. Taking a short breather. So, Dark Lich coming up has 6,666 HP, and thus it has more than double the HP for most of the previous bosses, let's put it that way. It's a lot more HP than we have to churn through, and also, I'm going to give the boy the sword in this scenario here. The sword actually gives +1 dexterity, which affects chance to hit, and due to how the formula's quirks work, it actually does not always increase your chance to hit, but since I want to have the sword anyways after this boss fight is over, well, this actually works out pretty well overall. Oh, okay. He dives down immediately. As mentioned before, this is one of the scenarios that I actually want to have happen. So let's see. Pop up your head, please. Aww. He didn't pop up his head. Really. Balloon ring is going to hit the lady, probably. Yeah, it hit the lady. I need to deny the damage here. Once again, I have very limited resources. I can revive one character one more time. Then, he actually does not gain spellcasting invulnerability while he is using a physical move. Only the spell here gives him spellcasting invulnerability, where I have to, well, deny the damage through as well. And we have one more, or 2 more royal gems after this. I needed to wait a little bit with attacking there, I think. As usual, I have a character closer to the boss than the boy, because I don't want the boy to get targeted, so we can just continue to attack. Oh, fun fact, this is the one spell that we are going to survive, because it's percentage-based XP, or damage. Alright, pop up your head, please. Okay, this could work fine. Maybe. Alright, welcome to the AI loop headbang. He can still escape from this, it's still kind of scary. I'm going to stay a bit further away than normal. So, what actually happens here is the lady stands in the exact center, which means that she cannot be targeted by the hands, or more specifically, the hands thinks she's too far away, so it tells the body that it should still move slightly closer to our character. Consequently, The body, or, well, the main character, or Dark Lich in this state, can only move up or down, but the only way he can move closer to the character is moving up or down. But this is just literally a very short AI loop. It's not technically a glitch, it's an AI loop, an exploit. And effectively this allows me to stand in the exact center. The hands don't recognize that the lady is close enough to be hit, because she's in the exact center between them, but the head just kind of moves up and down really quick, because that is how it moves closer to the lady. So, yeah. Yep, that's the headbang. Well, we usually call it the headbang glitch, because that's kind of how it appears. And it's a kind of an apt name, because he's just banging his head to the music, which is pretty awesome. Alrighty, and if you think we are done with all the glitches and there was no new ones, well, I have to disappoint you, or, well, surprise you. There's going to be one more glitch coming up in just a moment here. So, the boy has the sword. You need to cast both the mana sword spells of the lady and the sprite onto this, so I'm going to cast with the lady here, switch the sprite, wait a little bit, switch to the sprite casting, move back to the lady, and move on to the warp portal. So, what I just did now is I skipped the initial cutscene that happens when we unlock the mana sword magic, or the mana sword for proper. Mana sword magic actually is on a timer, unlike all other saber or weapon spells, which means after a certain amount of timer runs out, it's going to remove the mana sword. However, during the cutscene, that timer is fortunately stopped, plus, because I casted it in a way where I don't watch the initial cutscene, that initial cutscene where the mana sword gets unlocked actually does round down the mana timer, and because I have Dryad level 0, usually the boy will no longer have any, well, timer left on the mana sword and immediately disappears after I unlock it the first time. But, well, we both skip the initial cutscene of the mana sword spell, as well as it is still active. Now, the next glitch is we are going to make the mana sword permanent. The mana sword is an actual weapon included in the game, and if you have too many sword orbs, you can actually upgrade to the mana sword. This is not just a fancy spell weapon. However, the spell does have some interesting properties, which I'm not going to go into for now. Either way, normally you cannot switch around the swords after you get the mana sword. It is locked to the boy. However, if you cast an elemental saber on your characters, it allows you to keep the sword basically permanently. However, it loses its additional damage properties through the spell, which is kind of an obscure mechanic anyways. But in short, I now basically have the mana sword permanently. The main reason why I've used the mana sword is not because you need it in order to defeat the mana beasts. In fact, the original 1-player 2 controller speedruns used the... I'm not even going to bother with one cycle, honestly, sorry. The original speedrun actually used the spear in order to defeat the mana beast, but... as mentioned before, we have a chance to miss. The chance to miss, at this point, we are high enough level that it's about a 30% chance to miss. You may notice that the mana sword does not miss unless the, well, mana beast casts a spell and is invulnerable because of it, like right now. I actually have to wait slightly in order before I attack. So the mana sword has perfect hit rate, which means it's never going to miss, which is very, very convenient, of course. There's a fancy technique where you use Acid Storm in order to reduce the mana beast's defense by 20%. Oh, okay. I accidentally unleashed a mana sword attack. That was not my intention. Yeah, alright, that's fine. I accidentally lost my mana sword attack. So you can one-cycle the mana beast. In order to do so more or less reliably, you use an Acid Storm attack on the mana beast first things of all, in order to reduce its defense by 25%. Acid Storm only lasts a very short amount of time with the debuff because it is level 0, but it is just far enough that you need one less hit in order to defeat the mana beast. And on top of that, if you time your attacks well, while also simultaneously doing the same trick that we used against Buffy as well as Vampire to lock the mana beast into place with slowdown, you can actually defeat the mana beast in one cycle reliably. However, it's a pretty difficult technique, and if you go for it and don't get it, you lose like 30 seconds because of the menuing. And in this case, I just don't feel confident did not like to even go for it, so I'm just taking the easy way out. So yeah, either way, Mana Beast has 9990 HP, which means 10 hits for maximum damage will in fact kill the Mana Beast. Also, the boy is going to miss here because of spellcasting invulnerability. Oh, well, he actually chose it. Alright, the boy has somehow has a different attack right there. This is not supposed to change up, but I guess I got the wrong one when changing up things. We have 2 more items to deny damage. 1 more actually now. This might be pretty tight here because I have a long attack animation, which I'm not supposed to have here. Okay, we got it. We had 1 Royal Jam left to deny damage. Sometimes the Mana Beast is especially trigger happy with his laser beams. Sometimes it is just fine. And we managed to win as soon as the party gathers right here and the screen lights out. Oh boy. That was a kind of a messy run, but I guess I got unrest still. Kind of look like Flammy on steroids, it does. Alrighty everybody, we managed to beat the Mana Beast. It was a bit of a messy run, I apologize for that. I didn't get a whole lot of time to practice beforehand, but Figure of Mana is one of these games that I can just pick up and play, and I guess it's a decent showcase. So I hope everybody you enjoyed the run one way or another. I do believe we're pretty far ahead of schedule, so I think I can show off a few things. I'm actually going to check my Discord real quick to see how far we might be and how much time I might have. Because, well, let's just enjoy the credits. Most marathon runs, of course, are kind of tight enough on a schedule that you just don't really have time to watch the credits. But one of my favorite things to do after Secret of Mana runs is just watch the credits, lean back and enjoy the music. Alrighty. So, I think I'm going to show off a bunch of glitches. I'm going to try and come up with what I'm going to show off. However, chat, there's a very, very important thing you need to guess from me. I know the SpeedGaming chat here loves guessing. So, instead of 22 different chests in Ganon's Tower, today we have 3 different moon phases. If you didn't know already, Secret of Mana's The End screen, the final screen, actually is randomized. And it is randomized based on your save files checksum, which basically means if you load a save file, go and defeat the Mana Beast, you will always get the same final screen as long as you just kind of keep getting, or without saving in between. Either way, there can be a crescent moon, there can be a full moon, or there can be 2/3 of a moon in the sky in the end screen. Which one it's going to be? I genuinely don't know. It's random every time. So chat, I would like to ask you, is it going to be crescent, full moon, or 2/3 of a moon? And yeah, I'm curious what you think about that. So let's see. Oh, I see. I just read the Discord message. So, they found another run to fill in the void after this run thanks to being so far ahead, so we don't have quite as much time for the credits, but I think without me preparing the glitch exhibition, I can like show off something at the very end of the credits. So this is going to work out, I think, just fine for still showing the moon phase. So it's going to be a bit of a shorter one, but I'm going to show you off 2 things, I think. And I hope that's going to work out just fine with the timing. But we're still going to watch the end of the credits, and I also need to run to the bathroom, so be right back, everybody.